right, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Digital Safari here at the Phoenix Zoo. We're here with Mary, who's an ectotherms keeper, and she's going to take us behind the scenes here. We can feed our Galapagos tortoises. So, Mary, we'll turn it over to you.
Hi, welcome to the live stream. Thanks for joining us, and I'm going to introduce you to some of our Galapagos tortoises. I'm going to go ahead and hop into the yard. Since she's right here, I'm going to kind of move around that side of her. So this is Lola. Lola is one of our 3 female Galapagos tortoises, and then our other 2 girls are farther in the exhibit. Lola is in her mid to late 20s, and she's about 200 pounds. All of our females are around 200 pounds. One of our other females, Junior, she is also in her mid to late 20s, and then Mary is in her late 90s to early 100s. And we can actually go over and meet her if you guys would like. So this is Mary. So she is, like I said, in her late 90s to early 100s. We don't know her exact age. And she's actually original to the zoo. She was here when it opened. We've had her all this time.
And what is it that you're getting ready to feed?
This is a carrot slice. Since I was petting her, she might take a minute to decide to eat instead of getting attention. So in the wild, they would stretch out all like this to allow birds underneath to pick off ectoparasites. And in captivity, it kind of translated over to getting some attention.
And everyone watching, if you have some questions during it, just leave a message in the comment and we'll have Mary answer it to the best of her ability here.
So they do see in color, so they see that this is orange. They have full color vision, which helps them to find good grasses and ripe plants to eat. Here at the zoo, they get primarily hay. In the wild, their diet's a lot of grasses and a lot of succulents. So here we mimic it as much as possible with hay, and then they also get some greens every day and a little bit of vegetables as well.
How do you tell the ages of the Galapagos tortoises?
For the most part, we have to know when they actually hatched. In Mary's case, when she first came here in the 1960s, they decided she was probably about 20 years old, and that was based on size. So we don't know her exact age. And so with our other 2 girls, one of them was actually hatched here in the Phoenix Zoo, and that's how we know how old she is for sure.
And so, what is their diet? What is the...
Here at the zoo, it's primarily hay, some greens, and some vegetables. In the wild, they would eat a lot of grasses, and a lot of succulents like cactus.
And who's this one coming over to join the party here?
So Lola's coming up on.
Lola.
How long do they normally live?
So the oldest that there's accurate records for was in her 170s when she passed. As we have more of them in captivity that we actually know their hatch dates, we'll have a better and better idea of how long they can live for. So 150 years, probably pretty easily. It's thought that 200 years probably isn't out of the question.
How long are their reproductive ages for?
Mary is still producing eggs. In fact, she just laid some 2 weeks ago. We have 3 or 4 technically of her hatchlings still at the zoo. One is Junior. Another one is Squishy, who's actually a programs tortoise, so that tortoise will come out with the animal resources crew sometimes. We have one that's about 2.5 years old that's off display, and then we have one that's about 1.5 years old that's on display.
So for those of you watching the Zoo Academy Awards show, Squishy was actually in the show we live streamed earlier today.
Do they have teeth? And if not, what do they chew with?
They do not have teeth. They have a serrated beak. You can't step on me either. Goodness. We can probably get a good shot. I don't know how close you can get in here. Oh goodness. So you can kind of see they've got a pretty good serrated beak there and really strong jaw muscles. So their jaw muscles come all the way up on their head. You can actually watch the back here contracting as they're chewing. You can't have my hand either. So they don't chew at all. They just bite off chunks and then they just keep going. And they just swallow the whole bite-sized chunk down. And we have Jenny wants to know how long it takes for the eggs to hatch. It's at least 110 days, and it is temperature-based. So a higher temperature and they'll hatch quicker, and a lower temperature and they'll take a little longer. There's always the risk, though, if you hatch them too quickly, they may not be fully developed, and if you take too long, they could run out of yolk before they hatch. But on average, at least 110 days. Do they have personalities? We had a question about their kind of the differing in personalities that you've observed. They definitely have different personalities. Mary, probably partly because of her age and she's been here for a long time, is a pretty steady old girl. She'll come up and elicit pets. Lola here and Junior, who's facing away from us right now, they're both definitely more about the food. So as soon as you show up to the exhibit, they start coming up to the gate hoping for some food. And then we do have our two males in the other yard, and they both are kind of interesting. When they first came here, they were both a little on the grouchy side. You guys are pushing me into the tree. But as they got used to being here, they actually kind of warmed up to us. We can walk over and meet the males.
We got a question asking why their shells look so different.
Part of it's going to be age. The different species also have different looking shells, or different subspecies, I'm sorry. Alright. So this is Mopey, and we don't know his exact age, but he's probably also in his late 90s to early hundreds. And then this is Elvis next to him, and Elvis is in his late 60s, early 70s. Mopey here is just shy of 400 pounds, and Elvis is just shy of 500 pounds. And this is like all of our Galaps in here are adults, so that's the size difference between male and female Galapagos tortoises.
Do you have a favorite story or anything like that of just working with these animals? We had a question about that earlier.
Oh boy.
Probably a lot.
Oh man. I don't know if I have a favorite story. You guys are like climbing over each other. They can be a handful. I suppose like some mornings, especially in warmer mornings, because I come through and I clean up all the hay and anything from the day before. And so if it's a warmer morning, they'll start following me around the yard already. Walking through the piles I just raked up and knocking over my tools and everything else. So they can be kind of troublesome for tortoises.
And then it was carrots in the other yard, but what are we feeding them here?
So this is some papaya. So this is like an extra treat. Since fruit is pretty sugary, it's not something that they get very often. Oh my goodness, you guys.
We got a question asking why their necks are so big.
They actually use that to help forage. So on the islands, sometimes what they have available to eat is actually a bit higher up. Especially some of the cacti species that they eat, prickly pear, actually form almost tree-like. So they have a pretty rough trunk, and then all the nice pads are up higher. So they can use those long necks to get up higher into the bushes to get to the better food. These two subspecies are more of the dome-shelled subspecies, and there's also a saddle-backed subspecies which we don't have here, but they actually have a big loop at the top of the front of their shell, and they can reach their heads up even farther. I am all out. I know. I'm sorry, guys.
So for those watching, once we reopen, we do have programs that you're able to have breakfast with the tortoises and that kind of a thing, and all the information can be found on our website at phoenixzoo.org. And certainly any donation or membership helps to keep these programs going. So we certainly thank everyone for watching here.
We got a question asking if they vocalize.
They do. It's typically when they're breeding, the males will vocalize. Other than that, they're fairly quiet.
And then can they hear or feel vibrations?
They can hear. It's definitely not as well as we do. So right here is their tympanum. So that's their, they don't have the outer ear like we have. So this is covering their inner ear. So they probably hear lower tones a bit better, and definitely not the range that we can hear. They're way more visual based than anything.
Darcy wants to know, how many eggs are they known for producing?
So Mary, she will usually lay about 6 to 8 eggs per clutch, and she'll usually do about 3 clutches a year, about a month apart. The clutch this year was a bit later in the year, so I don't know if she's going to follow that pattern this year or not. So we will find out.
And Janet, that is not Cheetos, it's papaya we're feeding the tortoises there. It does look like a Cheeto, those sound good.
What is considered a geriatric age for tortoises, since they do live so long?
Probably late hundreds, yeah. Sometimes they might show some signs a bit earlier. All of our Galapagos are pretty good. A big male Aldabra tortoise does have some arthritis issues, and you can kind of see it in his the way he holds his head and his neck. He's a little bit on the crooked side. But all of these guys so far are pretty good. I haven't seen any issues.
What is the oldest turtle at the Phoenix Zoo, or tortoise at the Phoenix Zoo?
That will be either Mopey, Mary, or Allie, who's our adult male Aldabra tortoise. We don't know any of their exact ages, but they're all probably in their late 90s to early hundreds.
And then we got a question asking why Elvis has a dip on his back.
That is just the way his shell forms. So a lot of the way the shell forms kind of depends a bit on nutrition as they're growing. And since they take a really long time to get that size, they can obviously have differences in nutrition as they're growing.
We have a question about what happens, or what does the zoo do with the baby tortoises once they do hatch?
We'll raise them up here till they're a certain size, and then they'll probably go to another zoo to continue supporting the species.
Can you talk a little bit about we had a question about their feet here and just some of the properties in general.
So on the front part of their leg here, you can see these heavy scales, and they actually have osteoderms in these, which are little bony plates, and that's because they can't tuck their heads in all the way. So they tuck their heads in a little bit, and then they bring these these bony front parts in front of their face to protect their face. And then here you have their toes. So these are their toenails, what would be like a claw on a lizard. Because they're quite muddy. And then they walk back here on kind of this padded section. That's the rest of their foot back here. And then so the skin on the back of their legs, you can see, is much smaller in the scalation, and it's actually fairly soft. So this tends to be a little more rough and plate feeling, and then this is a bit softer.
Mona, age 10, is wondering why they like to be scratched on their chin.
So in the wild, they would stand up like this to allow birds underneath to pick off ectoparasites, and that would be like ticks or flies and that kind of thing. And it did kind of translate over in here at the zoo to getting attention. So this probably just feels good to them. They can't really reach a lot of these parts to scratch them themselves. So I find especially like right here, they really like, yeah, they just enjoy it.
What is the biggest tortoise we have here?
The biggest will be Ali the Aldabra, and his last weight, he was 660 pounds. So he's, which is kind of unusual because typically the Galapagos are actually the larger of the two species, but here Ali is just massive.
What is it about? Sarah wants to know why they live so long. Is it what is the reasoning for that, or is it just the species, or can you talk a little bit about that?
A lot of tortoises are fairly long-lived. They live pretty slowly. Yeah. They don't have a lot of, once they're larger, they don't really have a lot of natural predators on the islands. So once they hit a certain size, they kind of just can keep on going.
Are the bottom of their feet similar to an elephant's?
They do have that little bit of padding. I've never touched the bottom of an elephant's foot, so I don't know how close it is though. But it is kind of squishy since they do walk on that.
Do we currently have any baby tortoises at the zoo?
We do. We have one that's 1.5 years old that's on display down in our small Wonders building on the Children's Trail. And then we have one that's about 2.5 years old who's currently off display. And the one that's 1.5 years old, he's still only about this big. So he's still really tiny.
Once we can open our doors again, be sure to join us for one of our breakfasts with the animals. If you have a kid that loves Camp Zoo, they get to come and meet some of the Galapagos tortoises. And if you feel compelled to help the Phoenix Zoo while we're closed, please visit phoenixzoo.org/donate. We got a question asking if they vocalize to keepers if they need or want something.
They do not. They tend just to approach us. Usually it's because they're expecting food from us, but if they want attention, they'll actually just come up to us and stretch out their front legs and their neck. Mopi will actually do that quite a bit. But it's usually the order is food and then attention for tortoises.
And Holly's just joining in. Can you talk again about how old the tortoises are or approximate age of the tortoises that we're looking at?
Sure. So this one is Elvis, and he is in his late 60s to early 70s. Our other male Mopi is in his late 90s to early 100s. And then our 3 adult females, we have 2 that are in their mid to late 20s, and then 1 who is in her late 90s to early 100s.
There you go. Well, we'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. Again, we post all of these videos on our website afterwards, so if you missed the live session, make sure to view it on Facebook or Instagram and YouTube and the website. And also you have an opportunity to adopt a tortoise on our website, so we'll paste a link for that as well. So certainly appreciate everyone tuning in, and Mary, as always, thank you.
Thank you.
No problem, guys.